see that the interventions, the constraints, the linkages, and the partnerships were generally covered quite well. And yet, let me reiterate that for some of the groups, I know that the discussions were a bit more detailed than the presentations in terms of like the interventions, in terms of the technologies, in terms of linkages even. And so if you can provide additional information in some of those areas where they said technologies have been developed for pests and diseases, for example, can you give us some information specifically on what those technologies are, or what those techniques are, what those approaches were? And if you can provide any of that information yet today, please get it to me by the end of the day, and I will ensure that it gets incorporated. We've had two very, very wonderful presentations this morning. In fact, I was telling the presenters that the one on capacity building could take a whole day because there was so much that was included under that, and that's why I'm happy that that will also be uploaded. At the same time, policy is a major issue. We talked much yesterday and the day before about policy inconsistency and how that has had a negative impact upon development programs. We've also cutting issues has been treated perhaps in a bit of a, not a comprehensive way, certainly. And then, of course, yesterday we also heard that the transactional and the accountability, including M&E and so on, have not really been fully covered in the group's different group presentations. But let us remember that the bottom line is point of departure, which has been mentioned a couple of times. That is, it's no longer business as usual. There must be a change so that there will really be agricultural transformation, because in any case, transformation means change, and it means also a change in the way that we're doing things. But one of the issues that has come up and has generated quite a bit of debate and has brought up a bit of concern as well as some perhaps confusion is the area of the clearinghouse. And I think it's very, very important that this be considered more fully. And so it has been decided that a panel will be brought up so that rather than for us to just be having some random kinds of questions here and there, this panel will be able to present us with more information, hopefully, and as well be able to respond to the questions that may come up. And there are 8 people on the panel. We have 8 chairs up there already. And as I call the different people, I hope everybody knows that they're on this panel. But if you don't and you hear your name, please just graciously stand up and come and join us. The first person, of course, is Dr. Jonas Chianu, who had first is also the head of the Africa Development Bank mission on TAAT. Then the representative of the Islamic Development Bank, Dr. Bashir Jama, please. I understand that the panel is also a cross-section of stakeholders. And so we have somebody from ADB, we have somebody from the donors, we have people from the different areas as well, as you will see. So we'll also call up the DG of ICRISAT, Dr. David Bergenson. I hope I didn't mess that up too badly. A representative of the private sector from Fasokaba Seed Company in Mali, Madame, oh boy, Maimoma Kolabali Sidibe. Please don't be annoyed with me. It's not my mother tongue. It's not my father tongue. In fact, Africa is my husband tongue. And Yoruba is my husband tongue. So I'm just struggling with everybody else's tongue. Nigeria is a wonderful, Africa is a wonderful place. So much diversity. And then we want a representative of regional bodies. And so we're calling Abubakar Njoye. Nojoya, who is from Koraf, Wikad. And thank you very much, sir. And then the IITA project consultant, Paul Warmer, who also gave us a presentation on the clearinghouse on the first day when we were here. And then we're also asking Dr. Dunstan Spencer to please come and join the panel, and as well to give even more gender balance, and as well on the basis of the presentation this morning, we're also asking Irene Fregpong to come as well. Again, I apologize for murdering some names, but I'm happy everybody came up. And so I'm going to hand over to the panel. I'm not too sure how, do we want to first of all take some questions, or would that be the best way to proceed? I'm going to hand over to you, Jonas, and however you want to handle it. So let me hand over to Jonas before, to make some preliminary remarks before we then open up for questions and they will respond to them. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, once again. Let me just set the stage for this. We all listened to the video that okay, so we all listened to the video that was sent to us by our president yesterday, and we all saw the enthusiasm in everything. There are certain things that are very clear to all of us. There is no question the importance of TAAT. There's no question as to whether we need productivity increases in Africa. There is no question that we need agriculture to become profitable in Africa. So those ones are clear. There is also no question that we need a mechanism that will help us for TAAT to happen. You see, we don't want to rescind into the same kind of feelings that people used to have. After 5 years, somebody will say, yes, we have invested all so much money, nothing happened. Not knowing that there was a missing link. So the onus is on us to discuss this mechanism very well and see the roles it can play in delivering TAAT, and also try to, as much as possible, even see who should place certain kind of responsibilities to get this done, and even go as far as where do we domicile this kind of mechanism. So, and also reassess the name, we call it, and probably come up with a better name that will not be distracting, and actually that will have some kind of implication on the role it will play. So, that is exactly what this panel is here. And everybody in this panel was selected based on specific experiences. And I will start with Paul. Paul, because he was a key architect of the material we have been discussing. Bashir, because of the on-the-ground experience he had working for AGRA. David, because of the experience he had with Indian government. Mrs. Tezakoba, just because she is from the private sector and has been working on the seed industry. That is very important for us. Mr. Njoya, because of the fact that he has been one of the best performed project management that the bank has ever used in Cameroon. Irene, all of you had her presentation, was wonderful. Dr. Dunstan Spencer, because in group 1 yesterday, I was told that they actually discussed this clearinghouse concept and actually came up with something that he can share. So you can see my own was just to set the ball rolling. So with this, I will step down, but just mention that for consideration of this panel and also the audience, we have thought about name, and we have tried to come up with a name called Technology Delivery Support Platform. DTSP. Just for consideration, it's not for adoption. If we come up with a better name, we will go ahead with this. But there is no question the fact that we need this mechanism. We are not going to be discussing TAAT so much, because TAAT, we have known it will happen, and we know that this TAAT will be something that will be managed by the CG system, IITA, and working with other organizations that have technologies. Those ones are not for discussion. But these conduits that will help it to happen and create this impact we are hoping to happen for millions of farmers and other stakeholders along the value chain. Thank you very much.
Okay, what we're going to do is, first of all, let each of the panelists give a brief perspective of their views or the way it should operate and so on concerning whatever we want to call it, but the name is very, very important. Perhaps part of the problem or of misconception might also be in terms of the nomenclature, that clearinghouse, what are they, I think somebody yesterday said, what are they clearing and how are they going to clear it? So it might be important to consider the alternative technical delivery support platform. By whatever name, we have to consider its objectives, its activities, and how it's going to operate. And so we will just go down the line as they are seated. And Paul, you don't want to start? You want to start on that side?
I'll do whatever.
All right. Let's just have a couple of minutes, not too long, because we want to give time for people to ask questions and make clarifications. So I would we'll just go down the line. All right? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, but some advanced warning would have been nice. I would have worn a shirt with buttons and I would have worn socks. But as far as me being the architect of the clearinghouse, that's pretty much true. We did this in a very rapid fashion, and in response to the Dakar conference and then the Feed Africa concept note that followed. And I've just tried to make something that will work on a transactional sense. I was told over and over again by the bank that it's transactional. Remember, transactional. And that means that we get more potent loans developed more quickly and for less money. Now, the truth is the bank is pretty efficient in its transactional costs towards loan awards. So then we're left with getting things done quicker and making them more effective. And indeed, the key is the technology delivery, and if that needs to be a part of the name, then so be it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think it's a good session to have. I'll just add three perspectives to the discussion. The first one, although our colleague Jonas Chano said it needs no emphasis, the need for TAAT, I think it's worth really re-emphasizing that point. I think that's our departure point, that we cannot do business as usual. That now, under the leadership of the bank, the Africa Development Bank, which is an Africa-based bank, we have a unique opportunity in that leadership of Akin to turn things around and to bring out the best. I think if we miss this opportunity, we will go down in history collectively as failures. To me, that is the driving thing, that we have now an opportunity that we must seize to get Africa's agriculture growing. The next thing is the how. I am one of those who quickly raised the concerns with the terminology clearinghouse. I even went a little bit ahead and said, who has given you the mandate to clear? No, it's not. I don't think the intention is to be a gatekeeper here. What we are looking for, and as Chiano Jonas mentioned, is a mechanism that can facilitate partnerships and facilitate it for two purposes. The first purpose is to go to scale, not 1,000 farmers, 10,000, but millions of farmers. And the next facilitation is to sustain that impact, scale and sustainability. And so that would require bringing on board public-private partnerships and bringing on board technology and bringing on board money to facilitate that, to get the chain going. So it's a question of taking a value chain and identifying for this value chain, for this number of farmers, for this number of countries for which this value chain is relevant, how can we bring on board those who matter and set a platform that will allow the various issues from seed availability to access to affordable credit to land issue, tenure issues, and solving the nitty-gritty. Let them do that, but you help them come together and identify that solution. Solution to those problems that are practical. So a technology support, technology delivery system, whatever we call it, is, I think, in the right, a support system that will allow partners to come together. The third thing that I wanted to mention is that along those lines, the second point, that platform, it has to be inclusive. It cannot be exclusive. Technology does not just reside with the CGIAR. There are many others, inside and outside of Africa. We need to bring the best that can help us move forward. Just forget about, put your heart aside. Whether you are this institution or that institution, it doesn't matter at this point. We need to move forward with innovations. And innovation might not be an improved seed here. It may be a way to connect farmers to markets. It's a process. So let's not forget about those very important softwares that are essential to move things. The last thing I want to mention is that in terms of this platform, it has this team that will be supporting, advising, has to be independent. It cannot be the same group that are generating the technologies that are also vetting what technology comes on board. You will have conflict of interest. And you lose trust. And you will start now spending a lot of time fighting or repairing damages. No. Set up a public-private team, government ministries, maybe some minister, finance guys, private guys, some people that stand out and say, aha, these ones are enough, they have not much interest in this and that, and can provide us with a mechanism to bring in teams together and provide an independent input into the system. I think those will take us, I think, far as opposed to a clearinghouse.
So Bashir said everything I would want to say, so I just echo that. But let me just take it a little bit further. I think we need to be specific. This is about agriculture. And it needs to be advisory, because at the end of the day, governments need to own this. It's their loan, it's their country, they have aspirations for their people. We need to come alongside and provide the very best innovation for them to realize their vision for their people. I think we need to move with a sense of urgency. This is a unique window in time where governments feel a palpable sense of commitment and urgency to address the needs of their people. You've got the partners lining up, the banks, the research institutes, the private sector, farmers, producers, organizations, all wanting to make it happen. This is the vehicle to bring that convergence to make it happen. So my humble submission would be something around agriculture advisory services. We're providing service that's inclusive, that's in the best interests of the country, but at the end of the day, it's the country that's going to decide how they best serve their people. We can help them in that process. Drawing on some of the examples that we have in India, there's the same sense of urgency happening in other parts of the developing world. And I think we need to draw on innovation from around the globe, whether it be China, Brazil, India, developed economies, to unlock the power of innovation to serve the bottom of the pyramid. I think critical to this is also reaching out to colleagues in the financial sector, into the infrastructure sector, IT sector, because all of these need to converge at the end of the day to provide broad-based economic growth that's sustainable. And I think we need to underscore sustainable and equitable. So clearly, this initiative is going to play a catalytic role in bringing together a coalition of the committed to see Africa not just be self-sufficient in food production, but be prosperous. Prosperous in not only providing nutritious food for the continent, but actually exporting to generate broad-based economic growth.
Okay. I'm here for like a private sector. Our principal role here is to deliver technology. To deliver technology, the end user of the technology need to know what's available. So to do this deliverable covenable, we need partnership, strong partnership with our nurses and CGIARs. It has to be like we need also our capacity to be reinforced. We need to have easy access to technology like breeder seeds and others. And we need also to have access to funding, like even if it's loan, has to be a low rent and adequate amount. And we also need our government to work on regulation to make the movement of the technology very easy. Like some seeds was been homologued in a neighbor country, we can import it to the others, like a liberal circulation of the technology. And to make the exportation and the importation, the taxes, low taxes on that also. And we really need our capacity, because to make the technology known by, we have to increase our without knowing how good is the new technology we are delivering. So we need support for demonstration of those new technology. And I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, I'm bringing to the table, as Jonas said, my small experience in managing a very good ADB program in Cameroon, and mostly as one of those facilitating the implementation of the West African Agricultural Productivity Program in West Africa, which is supported by the World Bank to the tune of 460 million, covering 13 countries. My understanding of the clearinghouse mechanism is mostly about facilitating the transfer of the best technologies, the best practices, the best expertise that the CGs and all the partners do have, including the NAS, including the international research centers, all those who have something to offer to Africa. All these best practices, how to put them into a sound program for the value chain that a country may want to develop in that particular country. I don't see it like a decision-making tool, but advisory mechanism, advisory tool to the countries to provide options for the country to decide which is the best option to take. We know all technologies have a cost, and not just financial cost, but environmental and social costs also. So these have to be taken on board, including policy. If I take the case of the West African Agricultural Productivity Program, it's about 4 major issues: supporting the country to develop enabling environment in terms of gender empowerment. Gender mainstreaming is key to any activities we are doing in agriculture. It's about communication, how to communicate to the stakeholders across the value chains. It's about good policies. Maimuna just talked about one of those, how to facilitate the circulation of inputs, how to facilitate the circulation of output, products, to facilitate marketing, linking farmers to market. This is key to any success we can expect from any value chain. It's also about building capacities. I think Irene did present the whole list of what we need to do, from research to farmers, including processors, all the value chain actors, how to empower them to be more effective in adopting the technology and making money out of it. It's also about developing the technologies. What we are doing is not just about bringing the technologies to the country, but we also have to help the indigenous national system to be more empowered. That's sustainability. And it's also about facilitating because currently countries will be relying on the loans. What mechanism, sustainable financial mechanisms, countries should develop to support research and agricultural development? I think we need maybe in that to see how we can help countries to develop their indigenous financing mechanism. Very few countries do have a good system, including banking. How can we make sure that after this loan for the next 10 years, countries will be able to put money into research? From the whatever tax on imports or tax on export, or from telephone companies, wherever they can get money to support rather than just relying on external donors. It is key for sustainability. So when we do all these, we ensure facilitating synergies, regional integration. It's important because most of these countries are too small. What are the best practices we can import from Nigeria to Cameroon to DRC? We don't need to invent the wheel. How can we facilitate the movements of farmers from DRC to Cote d'Ivoire to see how they can learn from those? I think the clearinghouse mechanism, which I call a facilitating mechanism to empower the country, should be doing or should be facilitating this type of activities, empowering the countries to be sustainable in terms of funding their activities, producing, adopting technologies, building capacities, and so on and so on. I won't be very long since we can still answer some of the questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I'll start on a premise that a lot of actors are working and doing what they have to do in their own institutional mandates and capacities. And we are working within the paradigm of innovation systems. So there are so many actors doing what they have to do. But the bottom line is we need to have directed investments, because we cannot afford just to put investments anywhere. Directed investments that will be based on credible decisions and ensure that these investments would have the returns on those investments. So that's the premise. So if we have so many actors that are all relevant, and yet we need to have directed investments to make those returns worthwhile, then a clearinghouse or a mechanism that actually helps to connect the dots is relevant, because you need to have a team of actors that are working collaboratively to ensure that, first of all, knowledge is managed in such a way that it can be accessed by those who need it, from farmers to whichever level, that they can use it to increase productivity and to increase their lot in what they're doing. The whole idea of intermediation is about that. It's about brokering those kinds of relationships. When we talk about collaborative service agreement, I said it this morning, that public sector remains the biggest on this continent entity that leverages resources for any investments to be made. And yet, many African economies are driving, or are saying they are driving, private sector-led economies. How do we make that happen? If we don't have that kind of relationship between the public sector and private sector, the public sector can leverage resources and yet trust private sector to drive it. How do we ensure we have that kind of arrangement, that kind of mechanism that will make that happen? Again, we need to talk about sustainability, and how would you have a clearinghouse or a mechanism that ensures sustainability, that ensures that a country will continue to invest in the best bet solution. So it must be a team that puts together a credible, or has the rigor of accentuating the best technologies, the best solutions that a country can put its investment or put money on and be able to see economic growth. So it's a very important support system that we need to put in place. I'm not too worried about the name, but it is a support system. It has advisory role, it has facilitation roles, but it also has to have the rigor of testing and putting together the best mix for a country. There has to be accountabilities of that team to a country who is going to invest or take a grant to invest in certain areas. So really we are talking about a mechanism that ensures that all the players and what they do are put to their best use, and helps to accentuate that for government to take a decision to put investment where they belong, because indeed there's too much leakage in the system, and we need to plug that hole. That's what it's about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I am, as Jonas said, I think I'm on this panel because Group 1, which was on rice, had a long discussion on this clearinghouse mechanism as we understood it. And as we understood it yesterday, before the presentations was made, particularly this morning, Irene's presentation. And we asked some questions and came to some agreements, which I'm going to report. We looked at the situation as a continuum. On the one side, you have a situation where if a country, say Malawi or Mali, decide that they want to participate in this program, TAAT program, they want to use technologies, they can go to ICRISAT, if you want to do something on cowpeas, make a contact with IITA. If I'm going to put cassava, I make a contact with Africa Rice if I want to put rice. So we have that on one side, one extreme, which is a situation without any coordinating mechanism. On the other side, the other extreme, you have something akin to what the innovation platforms are putting together at the ground level, which means everything, everybody, all the concerned stakeholders, all the players are together. Now, what did we see in the clearinghouse as we understood it? That it was somewhere in this continuum. It looked like a mechanism where the CG centers are brought together to make their technologies available and help in the process of CG technologies being available. And at a bit more than just, it has to be something like a one-stop shop, which means there's an advantage to going countries or potential participants going to each particular center. And as a one-stop shop where you can come and get all the CG technologies made available, you are told about them, you help to put them in place, we thought that that was an acceptable mechanism as it was portrayed. A clearinghouse, or whatever you want to call it, for CGIAR technologies, one-stop shop where this information is available. So that was our conclusion on that side. Now, what about the rest of the stakeholders? How do we bring in the private sector, the machinery manufacturers, and now we are focusing on rice, but it could be for everybody else. The private seed companies, all the other stakeholders, the national systems, and so on. This mechanism, as it was portrayed to us yesterday, as we had it up to yesterday, could not do. We didn't think it was an efficient mechanism that could do that. Now, Irene's presentation to me this morning also added one element, because it provides an element, a linkage through which the NAS and the other players could be effectively brought into the system. And I stand corrected, maybe it's more than a NAS, some private sector people and all. So you see that we were saying the clearinghouse can be an efficient mechanism as a one-stop shop for delivery and support for CGI technology, but we need more than that. And what do we need more? How do you get the private sector into it? How do you get the other people that are supposed to be more effectively into this mechanism? Is it even possible to do that? Because if you want to go to the extreme of the innovation platform where everybody is together, I have difficulty conceptualizing that at the level of support for TAAT. But how do we broaden this concept a bit more? That was where we ended, and some of the proposals made today, this morning, and now maybe will help us to move in that direction.
I got so captivated by what they were saying, I forgot I had a responsibility here. Yes, DG, you would like to make a comment? Of course. Who am I to say no to?
Yeah, well, I believe this discussion is really very important. And my only caution will be to start creating more institution. I should say, we can do without a clearinghouse. Probably it's not necessary. If we are talking only about a project and a grant, there is no need of a clearinghouse. We do business as usual. It's a large project, but it will be managed. We've been working with the bank. We have the largest project in the CG called SARDC. It's very successful, almost 85% consumption, but the bank is being green every time, and the leader of this project is here, Dr. Dougou Keita. So that project has already 3 centers, 3 Africa Rice, ICRISAT, and IITA, and working very well. I'm going to tell you how we evolve from that. Simply, when a country decides to take a loan, most of the time it's really difficult. When that loan goes in the ministry, they won't think about organizations like CG and all kind of things. No way. They won't. The first time, in 2012, I was discussing with the president of the bank here. when he went as a minister to take a loan at AdB in Tunis. He's been consistent. Technology will make a difference, even in Nigeria when he was a minister. And he said, Sanginga, you're going to be part of my delegation. I was with Martin Fregene here. And we went there. And I'll tell you, that project was negotiated on the term of the government. I was sitting in that office with the minister and then the president of the bank, where Akin was telling Kaberuka, this is what I want to do in my country. It's not what the bank is going to tell me to do. This is my strategy. Is either you fund it or you don't fund it. These are our needs. And in terms of technology, he called me, come and support me. IITA, bring some other players, see ICRISAT and so on in Africa Rice. And we started implementing that project. And there was even one condition, Keita can say it. The country couldn't access that loan until IITA will sign that we are going to bring these technologies. That was condition number 6. And we went into a memorandum of understanding with the minister. We signed it, and once it was signed, basically the project was, or the money was disbursed to Nigeria. It's 200 million project. See what happened. The country takes that loan. For 1 year and a half, the ministry has not been able to move with that project in terms of implementation. The 10% consumed in that project and implementation has been done by IITA, Africa Rice, and ICRISAT. And today, that project was going to be stopped, but because of that implementation by the CG Center and so on, it is still continuing. So the question is, and for us, when our countries take loan and that money ends up not being used and you pay for it, so we should sit down here as a CG Center if we can help and not help. So that's the origin, basically, of a discussion of saying maybe we can create something additional for managing just a project that can help the government basically improve its project execution and start even putting partner. I can tell you in this ATSAP here in Nigeria, it is the CG Center putting even the ministry people together and reminding them. I remind the minister every time that you have to do A, B, C, D. That's what we want to do in the CG, and not sitting in a situation where you wait for you get a grant, you do small thing here, and then stop there. That we've been doing for 50 years. We don't want to do that again. So I'm going to read to you a note I got from the president. In fact, I got a copy. It's been addressed last night to Chiji from the president, 13 April 2055. The subject is Prime Minister of DRC. Chiji, I'm with the Prime Minister of DRC. They're in Washington at the World Bank. He spoke to me. He's ready for the bank to invest in the development of their agro-industrial park and wants to see quick movement. He would like you to visit and see the agro-industrial park. That's the president saying. I approve for you to travel, to meet with him, and quickly move the project forward. Contact his office and move this. AAA. That's Adesina, Adeyemi. Oh, Akin. Am I right? So, Gigi was playing squash yesterday. He played, and those people were playing, and their phone every time. He opened his phone, that's the time he saw this message. And he was trouble. You have to move quickly. And who knows Akin, he knows things have to move very fast. So when he receives this, to whom do he go? He goes. In Congo, he will need rice. He will need cassava. He will need maize. We need granite. He will need. So, should Chiji start contacting the David Berginson of ICRISAT? He should contact Africa Rice. He should contact 15 centers, send email to all those 15 centers. The DRC doesn't want to wait. They're going to take a loan, and we promise that we can do this. Akin said to him, I have TAAT. TAAT will help you. This is a situation, it's a very pragmatic situation. It is a question of responding as quickly as possible to some of the requests and making sure that we don't waste time. Akin basically built agriculture here in 3 years. Something was sterling for 15 years. Here in this center, in 2011, when I came here, well, things were difficult. And well, we could say, let's wait for 10 years for us to do some of the things we've been doing this. In 5 years, we've been able to do some of the things which some other people have not been able to do in 40 years. So what I'm just trying to say here is we should not spend too much time on creating all this big mechanism. Let's be very pragmatic. For me, the clearinghouse, the name is bad. Yes, let's remove that name. What Dunstan say here is something practical. You can really basically adapt it and be flexible. And if we go, actually, with what we are proposing, with Jonas has proposed, the best place for it to be should be at the bank. It should be at the bank, create that, and that's basically what you're creating. You're creating two extremes, an extreme of quality enhancement, which we are proposing as a city center, improve what we are doing, improve those loans, but you need a mechanism of control, and that mechanism of control could be at the bank. So my proposition is, let's be pragmatic. Let's not waste time on this clearinghouse. We should not create any institution for this. We're spending money for nothing, and let's just be pragmatic and making sure that you trust Africa Rice or trusting ICRISAT or FARA to do one of the things we have to do. I think that's my point.
Thank you, sir. I put it in a very good context that it's about getting things done. It's not a question of just talking and waiting for things to happen. Thank you very much, sir. I think that the next line of action should be to allow people to ask some questions. Oh, the hands are going up already, and there's no doubt that there are some issues to clarify. So I think we'll ask some questions and see how far we can get in the next little bit. So I'm going to start with the first. We'll start with like maybe 5 questions at a time and answer those, and then if there are still questions, which I expect there probably will be, so maybe more than 5. Okay, definitely more than 5. There are people here that I cannot say no to. Jonathan, I would ask you to be number 1, and then behind you 2, 3. I know you had your hand up first. 4, 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, and then we will see if there will be more questions. Yes, please, Jonathan. Yes, please.
No, it's me.
No, it's number 1.
Me?
Damon, he's number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, he is number 1. Yep.
Thank you. Well, since you insist on us posing questions and not making comments,
Please,
I'll ask a question.
whatever you feel you want to contribute, sir.
Okay, thank you. I just So my question was going to be, has anybody ever heard of the Regional Unit for Technical Assistance, RUTA, in Central America? A multi-donor platform which basically reduces the risk to the borrower and the lender on those transactions between financial organizations and countries. I worked on this for 3 years in the early 2000s. It was a unit which was composed of secondees from different financial institutions, World Bank, Inter-American Development Bank, IITA, IFAD, FAO, World Bank, etc., and DFID, who I worked for at the time. What that unit did was it reported to the Council of Central American Ministers of Agriculture, took its work plan from the Ministers of Agriculture, and its purpose was to assist in ensuring that the loans and grants they received internationally were used to the best possible advantage, and provided risk reduction to the lenders of those funds. So basically, it was a bit like what Dr. Sangingo was talking about. It was a repository of information. So we got market change stuff from IFAD, evaluation stuff from FAO, environmental stuff and indigenous people from World Bank. David was putting in livelihoods advice through myself. Each of those secondees had got access to the best knowledge from their own organizations. And so in a different sense, within a technological platform to support those transactions, I would see this as a type of model that could be looked at to give some inspiration for what needs to be created here. I would agree with Dr. Sangingo when he said this is about getting things done. I would just add that it's about getting them done well, because there are too many loans go down the drain without getting the full potential, and that was the case in Central America at that time. I'll shut up because people can look it up on the internet when we get internet access. But one final point on this, I was there during the time of Hurricane Mitch, which devastated large parts of 2 or 3 susceptible countries in Central America. This platform was immediately put into action to bring the donors in and talk to the ministries in order to actually move forward very quickly. So just putting out an idea, an acronym, third final point, it was supported and run by UNDP and World Bank at that time, but gradually the donors pulled out, not because they didn't like it, but because it was time for Central America to own that platform for itself. And I believe that's now happened.
Thank you very much. That's a very, very useful, we have to look at what has been done and learn from it. Thank you very much. Yes, Damien?
Mine wouldn't radically depart from what Dr. Sagenga said. I think if you want to kill a dog, you give it a big name. And that's what has happened to that clearinghouse concept. What essentially we need is a secretariat for that, not beyond that. What does the secretariat do? Get information when countries need technology, find a way to get that technology to the country with the research institute that is responsible for that technology development. I think that's all we need to do. Let us have a secretariat for that, and that will, take us away from all these names that do not mean anything in reality. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Number 3, yes. Actually, you were the first person to put up your hand. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Honorable Dr. Ife Arowoshoge. I deliberately use the word honorable for reasons I will explain later. Yeah. Number one, we are talking of mechanism to sustain partnership and value chain, and you are asking us to supply a missing link. I've been able to identify one particular missing link, which I think may be useful here. Number one, I was asking a colleague right now, how old is the age of African Development Bank? I think it's about 50 years. IITA has been existing when I was in primary school. I went to University of Dakar here. That means this kind of workshop has been on and on. Effort has been put in place. Like one speaker was speaking day before yesterday that he was in a particular workshop abroad, and he started saying about the whole of Africa, and he was even being asked why all the time problems of Africa. There have been several efforts put in place to move Africa forward so that Africa can feed Africa. Here we cannot feed Africa. This workshop is one of such, and I just hope that at the end of this workshop, there will be progress, much progress in Africa. Number one, I feel that the very particular missing link, and I see even this particular workshop as missed out now, is the role of Parliament. See, I know that ministers of agriculture were invited here. I don't think parliaments of African countries were officially invited here. And you will talk of, apart from policy of executive, the legislation is being drafted and is being pushed by Parliament. Then when policy is in place, it's the parliamentarians that oversees and oversights the function of the executive. Let me use Nigeria for example. Nigeria, we have 360 constituencies, federal constituencies in this country. And during the 7th National Assembly, I happened to be a member of the House of Representatives. I was in the Committee of Agriculture. I know that every state in this country has representative in that particular committee, unlike other committees, because it's agriculture. Every state was represented, including the FCT. And, by the Constitution of Nigeria, you only need a school certificate for you to be able to contest election to any particular position in this country. In fact, last year, year before last year, there was a debate on the constitutional amendment, and I stood up, I said, Mr. Speaker, can we not make educational qualification of National Assembly people to be first degree? It could not stay true. Mr. Speaker said, well, my friend, Honorable, you are from a state where every house you have a professor. You are from a Ekiti state. But what of other states in the country? As a matter of fact, if you have a primary C certificate and with some level of experience, you can also gain admission. You can contest to the National Assembly. Now, without educating the National Assembly, how can you push this policy? People are there for various reasons, but you must have knowledge of what you are doing. You must not be an ignorant person for you to be able to derive policy. Now, the state government, they also have their legislation. I don't know whether state government are invited here or they refuse to come, I don't know. Now, every state has parliament too. And these people are linked directly to the grassroots. The local government, I'm just using an example of Nigeria, we have 774 local governments in Nigeria. Every local government has parliament. So I believe it's a serious link. This is a missing link, which I think if we can utilize properly, we can have things properly done. I believe they have to be, first of all, be carried along. Just the day before yesterday, we were going around. Simple technology was shown to us how to make use of a cassava peel in IITA here and make $150 per ton. In Nigerian value of Naira today, that is 30,000 per ton. That is waste, from the waste, mere waste. And we use money to remove them, to remove the waste. That is simple technology. And now, being exposed to this, I believe we can transfer this to the grassroots people. I think major problem we have is not being able to carry these technologies to the grassroots, and they are ready. Anything that will improve your take home, everybody will be ready to go into it. Then finally, I believe another missing link is that many of us here, we are just making policies and bringing bright ideas. How many of us really have interest in being government? If you are in government, you are going to do better than you are doing, because you've been doing this for years, and now because many of us are not in government. Look at Dr. Akinwumi, who was in government for 4 years. Somebody mentioned it before yesterday that here we are very happy.
You can round up.
I'm rounding up now. This is the last thing. Dr. Akinwumi now, because of his experience of 4 years,
yes, sir,
he has experimented this in Nigeria, And so we want to experiment it on the continent of Africa. And I'm very sure it's going to be positive. So I want us to pick interest. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Number 4, one of the advantages of a wonderful gathering like this is that we have the perspectives of many different types of stakeholders. And definitely government officials must be part of the whole, Otherwise, we are going to end up being defeated when it comes to actual working with the public sector. Thank you very much for your comments, sir. Number 4, yes.
Thank you very much. I am Tosin Atewologun, a consultant to the World Bank on export marketing and the director of EcoBank in Guinea Republic. First, with due respect to the last speaker, I think the 774 local governments, 36 states and federal capital territory, and the state and the federal government are perhaps the reason why we need a clearinghouse. Because when you have so many interested parties in a program like this, nothing is going to get done. And I think I would suggest that there's a review that would aim at doing 3 things. 1, you must be able to evaluate the techno-economic viability of the technologies that are coming to the table. And somewhere that has to be evaluated. Number 2, we must be able to have a process that delivers optimally. And that process has to be identified and resident somewhere. Number 3, there must be a way of examining the relative potentials for replication of some of the technologies that are coming to the table. Therefore, whether it's a one-stop house or a secretariat or whatsoever, I think it's vital to have some location, some point where all of these ideas and technologies are evaluated and then pushed aggressively. The last point I want to make is that as a director of EcoBank, with presence in 36 countries in Africa, I'm surprised that the EcoBank group is not represented at this meeting. I would therefore want to suggest that next time a forum like this is being put together, we have a group headquarters in Lomé, and I would really strongly suggest that some invitation goes to that institution. There's no other bank like us in Africa. Thank you.
And that was just a little advertisement free of charge. We won't charge you for that. However, sir, I would say that since you are here, you are represented. Number 5, please. Number 5. Number 5, do we have number 5, please? You forgot your numbers. Going.
Thank you. My name is Ian Wright from the International Livestock Research Institute. I think it's very clear that there has to be a simple single point of entry for whatever we're calling this thing. But my point is that Africa is a large and heterogeneous continent, and if this is going to be demand driven, there has to be close contact with individual countries. So I think we need to think through, while we need a single entity, does that need to be distributed regionally to be able to maintain that close contact and discussion and dialogue with individual countries? Now, the African Development Bank already has a regional structure. You have regional, I think 5 or 6 regional offices. So that may be worth thinking about. Can we just tap into that existing regional structure to get that closeness to member countries and have that close dialogue?
Thank you. Number 6. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just want to make 2 quick points and then make a proposal. The first
name, please, sir.
The first is that...
Your name, please, sir. Sorry, before.
Sorry, Kwesi Atakra.
Thank you.
IITA and Human Tropics.
Yes, sir.
Now, the first point is that I think we all have to remember the presentation that Chiji gave on the first day. And one thing that came out was that TAAT is a very small part of a much larger elephant. And it would be very risky that we just see TAAT as if that is an entity which is independent in itself. I have attended a number of Africa Development Bank country consultations in relation to the ATA, which is the Agricultural Transformation Agenda. Two things surprised me. One is the different type of people you have around the table. There you have people from the ministries of trade, ministries of finance, ministries of wherever, and of course, Ministry of Agriculture. And the kind of issues they talk about is not the issues we are talking about in this room. As a matter of fact, in most of those things, it's very difficult even to hear the word research coming out. They're not talking about research. They're talking about these big things. So sometimes a space has to be created for the role of transactional research to be brought into the bigger horizon. And the second thing I want to say is that even talking about the research that we are all interested in, it has been emphasized over and over again that this is not talking about business as usual research. As a matter of fact, if you look at what this initiative is trying to do, we are in a way redefining the research for development agenda from a very different perspective, a very strong country-led, development-oriented perspective. And it takes some mechanism to enable us to really work together in that regard. So basically, all I want to, what I'm driving at is that individually, as centers and institutions, it is going to be very difficult for us to penetrate the whole framework of what is designed within the framework of the agricultural transformation agenda. You need to have a nucleus with strength, which is drawn from all the membership. That enables us to think through these elements and be able to make these sort of cases for all of us. And I think that is what this clearinghouse mechanism is attempting to do. Forget about the name. If we don't want the name, we can change it. Let's think of the functional roles that this thing is trying to do. And from the panel, there were some very good elements that came out of the panel in terms of the roles that it has to play. But believe you me, I'm very convinced that if we don't have that kind of nucleus, it will be very difficult. You know, let's not just think everything has to be simple. The world is not always just driven by simplicity. To make effective change, the kind of change and the transformation that we are talking about, it has to be well organized, it has to be well coordinated. Not everything will fit. And we have to be able to give some collective ownership of a nuclear program that will help us to be able to do that. So my plea is that let's focus on what the functions are, and then we can discuss the other elements that relate to how it can play that role and play it in such a way that it addresses the interests of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. You raised your hand behind before. How did we get 7A and 7B again? All right. I think somebody sort of smuggled themselves into it. Please, go ahead. Sorry. Okay, you're number 7, number 8. All right, fine.
Eric Koper, IITA, also Human Tropics.
Thank you.
The definition, I mean many of the definitions, but for example, the definition of coordination is that the organization of the different elements of a complex body of activity so as to enable them to work together effectively. And I remember that Jonas and also Chi both indicated the sense of urgency, also the president. Sanginga just now is the email example. There's an element of urgency, there's an element of responsiveness, there's an element of quality, and an element of accessibility and availability. And I still want to remind us that Jonas was mentioning also accountability and what mechanisms you put in place. But I think in reality we talk about a lot of different ways of thinking about how are we going to operate in future, how can we be more demand-driven, etc., and what are the key technologies that can actually provide rapid responses and solutions, but with quality assurance mechanisms. Now, how you put that in place and who does what, maybe it should be in a very distributed sense, because every actor has a different role to play, but they still need to come up with, in my view, very clear packages.
And then technologies for by CGIAR and its partners. That's what we're talking about. Within the context, obviously, of a bigger picture, we could call it initiative, the ATA. So, from what we have been saying here, and all the experiences that we have had, there should be, because of the number of players that we have, there should be a coordinating and facilitating mechanism. And that's what maybe we have called the clearinghouse. It was not quite clear to those who have joined the process on the way. It's normal, and we should make it clear. And from what I'm hearing today, we are not refuting the fact that we should have that kind of mechanism. And we have lived it. I was executive director of CORAF, and I remember when going to GCAD2 and talking about a clearinghouse mechanism. Dr. Njoya was there, they were all there. And we were trying to portray the fact that if we don't have a proper coordinating and facilitating mechanism, we're never going to get anywhere. So it is a clear fact. So what we should be talking, and what I propose, is that we should all accept the fact that we want that kind of coordinating and facilitating mechanism. With certain principles which have come out here: integration, synergy creation, rationalization of resources, and timely delivery of these resources, and all what goes with it. Those are important points that we should note. The how, I think Dr. Joya has mentioned it. We can look at 4 issues. We can look at the enabling environment. We can look at capacity building. We can look at the inclusiveness of the various partners. This private sector, they were asking how could they be involved? They would definitely be involved. It's in the document. And last but not least, the fact that we should strengthen capacity in coordination and facilitation, even within our states. It is a fact. The SAD-SC project is a living example of the need of this. So what I would suggest is we agree on these principles, and then we leave it to the bank and the consortium of CGIAR and its partners to actually dress the way forward. Otherwise, we'll be giving our experiences which we all know, and it will go on and on forever. So we need to accept that fact. I think we should come to that conclusion here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would take maybe about 3 or 4 more questions, and then we will turn it over to the panel to see what they can do with it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right. And 6. Sorry, you were the... And that's all.
I would just simply like to place the discussion into context, if I can. We are doing a preparation workshop, a preparation of a program. And I believe the objective, we all agree on the objective of the program, TAAT, that it will make science, knowledge, and technology that are needed for agricultural transformation to the region's farmer and stakeholder in agricultural transformation. So that's what the program is about, and we have been discussing strategies for the past 2 days, how we will change the Sahel, Savannah, and so on. Now, how this program will be efficiently implemented. That's another objective, but the program will be efficiently implemented. So let's look at it as just two expected major results. Technology will be made available through the program, and the program will be efficiently implemented. How this will be done. And so we're looking at the governance of the program, policy directions, program implementation. Traditionally, you have a steering committee who provide the policy directions for the program implementation, and you have a program implementation coordination unit who does the implementation. That's a classical project or program. Now, looking at the multi-institutional, multi-stakeholder type of TAAT operation, there may be some other functions which we need to define. Where do we place that? And if suppose we place some of that at the level of the project coordination and implementation unit, and we note that it's a bit beyond what is classically the role of that structure. Now, how do we call it? What kind of competencies we attribute to such a unit? I think that's where we are. Now, because we are at the stage of preparation. Preparation is about discussing options. So it's a good thing we are getting many options for this. So I think in this kind of work, there is no bad idea. We just try to make sure we don't lose any of them. We find a way to keep track of all of them, and at one point discuss merit and so on. And obviously, the way we organize ourselves to do this work, while certainly some are thinking of how to make technologies available, generate or make technology, transfer the technology. Some other people with adequate expertise should be thinking of how to efficiently implement the program. So it's obvious that coming up with an analysis of options and making an adequate proposal cannot come from this kind of large group. So I don't think we will be able to reach a consensus here, no. So it's a good thing. I think we have heard many options. It would be nice now to find that group that will do the analysis and present all the options in the report, and then make its recommendation as what should be the right way to go. And now, at another stage of the project cycle, which is appraisal, because this is your show. It's not the bank's show. It's not the donor's financial partner's show. It's your show. All of us are here, myself, Jonas, Chiji, who left. We are all here in the capacity of technical assistance with consultative views. You are free to take or to ignore. When we come for appraisal, we will come as the ADB to appraise what ADB will put in the program. World Bank will come, IFAD will come. At that stage, we will look at what we think will work and what we can engage, take. At that stage, that's how we can probably have another, it will be an opportunity to really rationalize the choice. So I just wanted to recall where we are. We are doing fine, but we should moderate our expectation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, time has been not our friend throughout this workshop, which has been very, very intensive. Please, let's make our comments as concise as possible, please. Martin, are you the next?
Yeah. I used to believe until tap into this very powerful, cell phone. It helps us reach millions that ordinarily extension or other traditional methods have not been able. So as we think of, this new platform, we should think of, how it's going to help us access technologies that will definitely take to scale things that in a way that we otherwise couldn't have done. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person, is that number 3 or what?
Because they don't have their feet on the ground, and what they do is to facilitate operations. And therefore my fear is that if TAAT now has a clearinghouse that's not well defined, perhaps we shall be having another platform in the system. And so my question now is, if the CG centers are there, which can function as clearinghouses, and you also have existing platforms, is there a way the TAAT initiative can be mainstreamed into existing platforms and get them to truly understand what TAAT intends to do, and then work with them to now execute that initiative? That's my very first point. Number 2 here is, if we say that TAAT is market-oriented and at the same time transactional, then the team we have here, to a large extent, I think the private sector partners here are strongly intimidated, because we don't seem to have gotten much from that group. So, by the time you have your model, is there a way you want to test it with a broader group of private sector? Because you eventually want their buy-in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 4? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Munir Babada Nagundi. I am from the House of Reps, Nigeria. So I want to just share a little of what has transpired when the president of the bank was our minister. I was the deputy chairman of the Committee on Agriculture at that time. I think what we are talking, initially when he came to brief us on his agenda for agriculture in Nigeria, especially on the agri-sector transformation, as when he finished the presentation, my first question to him was, don't you think this presentation was a bit kind of sort of something that will be an elitist idea that you are bringing to us? And then he was a bit baffled, and you can see his face changed, and then he said no. And before he convinced us, because of the past antecedent in the country, he had to think of bringing what you call an agricultural transformation council. You bring everybody on board, the committee chairman of both Senate reps and all other stakeholders, and then the president. And by the time he finished, I was convinced that we need this kind of transformation. We are a bit wary when change comes. People tend to bring all sorts of things that they don't want to change. And from what I have seen, the public servants tried to even frustrate what he was trying to do, because we oversight all of them and see. And I want to be specific. I remember there was something they introduced through one of the international research centers, the ICRISAT. He gave them an assignment to develop on groundnut technology with the national budget. They have to be coming to us even to access the monies, the difficulty they had. So I think I want to lend my support to the issue of the, whatever you call it, you said clearing house, but I'm a bit wary it's more of neo-colonialism. You are giving me a loan, you want to clear something that is not acceptable to me. But I would prefer maybe TAAT advisory group or council, something like that is more diplomatic to me. And by the time you do that, I'm sure all the countries with their own peculiarities, like Nigeria, I will support that, because if I look at ADB, what is the impact of ADB in Nigeria? I can't see it. I can't see anything. But I'm sure in other countries, you can clearly see the impact of ADB. I've been to Cote d'Ivoire. I have seen what is there. But in Nigeria, you can't tell me this is the impact of ADB. A common man cannot see it. But in Cote d'Ivoire, you can see it. So, but for Nigeria, I think this is very strategic, and it will help also reach our NARIS, the whatever you call it, but I will prefer, as I said, TAAT advisory group or council, something like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that perspective, which is a unique one on the basis of your unique experience as well. And thank you for being here throughout with us, and also for your contributions. We appreciate that. I'm lost. Number 5, is it? Yes.
Yeah, my name is Moses Yambi. I'm from ICRISAT. I think I agree, and I think it's important that everyone realizes that whatever we will call it, that mechanism needs to exist. And I'll give you an example from Southern Africa, where the World Bank, through the Productivity Project, has funded Malawi, Mozambique, and Zambia. The CG centers were on board in developing the proposal. The moment the loans were advanced, the CG centers were dropped, because there is no mechanism for them to access that money. It's not that the countries are being mean or whatever, but there is just no mechanism. So it is important that if the CG center has to access the money that is loaned to a government, there has to be a different mechanism. And I think it is important that we learn from these past arrangements that haven't worked, and be able to provide the necessary backstopping to these countries. Because the uniqueness of the CG centers is that we can move technologies across countries. National programs on their own cannot move those technologies. It is only the CG centers that are able to do that. And I think with that uniqueness, then it is important we develop a mechanism. I think the list of the things the entity will do is very long. So probably we need to dwell on what it should not do, because I'm sure that will be a shorter list. And that is what I think in my group people are worrying about, that if it is a clearinghouse, it is going to be a gatekeeper, it is going to determine who gets funded and all that. So I think maybe if we allay the fears of what the clearinghouse will not do, we can give the long list of what it will do. Of course, the money going into that shouldn't be too much. We shouldn't be, at the end of the day, having the number plate being bigger than the car.
Thank you very much. I hope that the panelists are making some notes because we'll give a couple of minutes for them to respond as well. Yes, the next person, I think we have only maybe 2 more people or so. Yes, please.
Yeah. My name is Rami Oshijo. I represent RBS Consulting and USAID Next. My challenge for the past couple of days since I've been here is that it seems as if we are stuck in the old ways of doing things, which is the supply side policy-driven kind of intervention, when the whole world seems to have gravitated towards what we call demand side private solutions. We cannot continue to do things the way we've been doing it over the years and expect that we're going to get expect to get a better result. All the technologies that I had, that I participated in discussions, tends to focus mainly on what we call the small-scale producers. For heaven's sake, there is nothing wrong with that. But my challenge is, even with what we have done before, the marginal increase in technology uptake, what exactly has been the result? When ATA came on board through additional, fantastic idea. Rice production went up in Nigeria significantly, but did they get to where they are supposed to be used? The answer is no. This year, only God knows how many tons of tomatoes people throw away in Kebbi State. The same thing with onion. My challenge is this. If you continue to push supply side technology as if it is only technologies is meant for farmers alone, and you are not looking at the logistics, the post-harvest handling, the pricing mechanism, the price arbitration, long-term price arbitration mechanism, then these farmers will not take up any technology because already the one they've taken up, they are losing money on them. So there is a need for us to start refocusing our thinking. There is a need for a paradigm shift. For us to start looking at how do we actually create opportunities for what these farmers are going to produce, even in large quantity, so that these assets that they consider their own asset is not perished, but value created out of it. The issue of the missing middle is a very, very critical one that we need to take a look at. Industrial warehousing of commodities. We need to start looking at technologies that can help you to preserve grains or whatever it is over a long span of this, of time. The same thing with the logistics of movement. You will find out that, look, no matter what you produce on the farm, when the logistical end of it is not streamlined and made functional, we will be losing all that advantage, and there will be no incentive for the farmers to go ahead and invest in additional technology, because the one that he has done, nobody is picking them up. So I think that part of the things that we might probably need to do down here is to start looking in that direction. If the technologies are not there, we should endeavor to buy the technology, or if possible, steal it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
Sorry
much.
to use that word. So that is my contribution.
Thank you very much. Well, I think there's one thing that's been apparent, well, several things that's been apparent since we gathered here on the first day, and that is that we are dealing with a very broad range of ideas, but one thing is clear, as you have reiterated, it's no longer business as usual. We're talking about change. Yes, I have one more question, I think, or did I get everybody? Did you put your hand up before? Because I won't give.
No.
You didn't. Then no. Anybody else that I gave a number to? Please, I'm sorry. I want to now hand over to the panelists, who will each give us maybe about 2 minutes, so that by around 12:45 we can break for lunch.
Well, it looks like we're going in the same order again. I have very few things to say. I mean, it's clear. TAAT needs to be a missing link in technology dissemination to farmers and rural communities, okay? Pretty much everyone agrees on that. TAAT must be demand-driven, based on the needs of the African Development Bank that has convened it, and other development organizations, has been relayed to them by their member states and clients. I don't think TAAT can start working with individual farmers or even individual communities. We need mechanisms like the African Development Bank's loan agreements that become reshaped through their agricultural transformation agenda. These become our mechanisms. In this way, TAAT becomes a front-end technology and technical service provider. We have to be responsive, as the way as Sanginga described. We can't just start flying around and holding talk shops when we're asked to help develop an important loan. And incidentally, you know, their loan process, while it appears to be complicated, is actually quite rapid. Often these identification, appraisal, and then loan agreements are written up within only 4 months before they're passed to the African Development Bank's board. So we need to be nimble to contribute to these things. And I don't think that we dispute whether or not TAAT is needed. I find it funny that people are discussing whether or not a clearinghouse is needed, because a clearinghouse is TAAT and vice versa. If you don't like the word, that's fine, but we have to really understand its role. So it's needed. I think it's very important that we learn from past successes and failed organizational structures, but it's also really important that we're not afraid to break new ground. You know, the person that said, well, we need boots on the ground that these regional organizations don't have, that's us. I mean, the CG and our partners are the people that put these boots on the ground and do iterative problem solving. You know, we used to talk about farming systems, and we would look at them in great detail and philosophy. But now we're actually much more involved in production solutions. And these production solutions need to be passed through to farmers through a mechanism, and none is better than the country loan programs of the African Development Bank. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think just building on that point of Paul and the comments made by at the beginning of this discussion by Sanginga, I think the key word there is our ability to respond quickly to the needs of governments, in particular, because the bank largely deals with government. So bringing together our best efforts, our best knowledge in one-stop shop or in an area where they can quickly use to get that information is really essential. Not only the technologies, but the other hows. So conceptually, that is a breakthrough, and it's an innovation by itself. And I think it's really worth moving forward, particularly when we have a champion like Akin who has done it and who has seen the value of linking with centers of knowledge. The other good thing about what we are discussing here is that it also has the potential to bring in the other financial institutions on board quickly in ways that complements the funding from the bank. A lot of these financial institutions work together. As a bank, we work together very closely with the African Development Bank. And so here is an opportunity that perhaps it will make it easier for the other financial institutions even to move faster and co-invest or parallel finance and minimize delays through doing their own groundwork. So there are many multiple benefits to having a one-stop shop, a place that can help countries and their partners to respond quickly to a demand like the one we had from DRC this morning. So I think you're right. Let's not get hung up with the name. Although there is something in the name, you don't want a name that is repulsive. You want a name that is or someone said colonial. We want a name that is friendly, that conveys a message of inclusiveness, partnership, and that takes people on board. But I think the bottom line is we have an opportunity here to respond rapidly with a sense of urgency and in a way that can get us to scale and sustain those efforts. Thank you.
Yeah, again, Bashir, I just echo what you said. I think what we need to do is draw on examples that have worked elsewhere or are working. And offer the example of India. Prime Minister Modi is working with a sense of urgency around farmer welfare. How do we leverage innovation to achieve farmer welfare, address malnutrition, and equity? And I think lessons from that, and also the state governments, which are really the implementing agent for agriculture, I think is very valuable. Chief Minister Naidu in the state of AP has really embraced innovation and broad partnerships to accelerate agriculture growth and equity, focusing on double-digit growth rates by looking at specific zones of production and how do we empower and bring the right partners together to implement at scale, sustainably, and quickly. So I think there are models out there that we should be drawing on. It was mentioned Latin America as another model. And I think, you know, we need to quickly assemble this and get on with it because there is urgency in the agenda of the governments, of the African Development Bank, and I like Nike's motto, just do it.
Okay, thank you again, everybody. I have comfort in the sense that we have really underscored the importance of this discussion. And I believe that the kind of information that we need as a bank team to continue the formulation, we have them. And like Ms. Aketa said, we're going to use it. It's a matter of putting down these things and look at the options. But as for whether we have got the information that will help us to really underscore what to do under this kind of clearing mechanism, or whatever name we call it, we have got it now. Thank you very much for the discussions.
Okay, I will go for the same thing. I think we need the bank to tell us what mechanism to put on. Otherwise, we need a coordination team to coordinate everything because the actors, there are so many, we need coordination. And I hear some as to inspire for a good practice going on. That's good. Like I can go for Agra. Agra went to my country and they put fund to the nurses to bring out of it new varieties, and those new varieties was taking, they help seed companies to get access to those new technology and take to the farmers. And now they work on market access also. It's good to produce more, but the market area also we need to work on that. And what I said, like he said, we need to implique more public sector, like those working with agriculture, transportation, finance, that will ease the circulation of the technician among the countries. And I think that the nurses also, they need to be, the capacity need to be reinforced because they, like I take example to my country, we don't have a cool chamber for the nurses to have a bank of breeder seed. I think we need that. If we want to achieve what we are waiting for this program, we need to have the technology available to be taken, to be in the end of the end user. And we need to work also on transformation and market access and consumer advice on what varieties, the market, like market preferred varieties, the breeder seed has to be available for the planter. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. I think we all agree that we need a coordination mechanism which can be a regional coordination unit. I think Dugu Keita said we need to evaluate, to analyze and present options. If I use the case of the West African Agricultural Productivity Program, which is a flagship program of the World Bank and ECOWAS, and coordinated by CORAF as a clearing house mechanism or a coordination agency, but implemented at national level with national coordination unit depending directly to the Ministry of Agriculture. Maybe for your information, as when we talk about the World Bank, it's not just the World Bank, it has also attracted other donors. Japan is investing in WAP, Spain is investing in WAP, Denmark is investing in WAP. So we imagine that ATA should be supported by many other donors. We need to use mechanisms that can work, that can be attractive to other donors to provide more, to be more appealing to other donors. The WAP approach is being implemented in other countries. As we're talking now, at 9 a.m. this morning, 6 countries of Central Africa and CORAF are meeting with the World Bank in Washington today to negotiate their own equivalent of WAP in Central Africa, which is called CAP, which means it's working. And no countries, as Dr. Sayinga said, no country can get a loan if CORAF does not countersign, because 1/15 of the loan goes to CORAF for regional activities, like the steering committee meeting, competitive and commission research grants, capacity building, and so on and so on. At the end, what really comes to CORAF is a tiny portion in terms of facilitation of the work at the coordination level. It's important we keep this in mind. It's a loan to the countries, and countries accept to give 1/15 to CORAF for regional activities. This approach seems to be appealing to many donors, and we need to think about such a mechanism where we have a regional steering committee. I imagine with this, our approach, which can be implemented in TAAT, we can have a regional steering committee with ADB, other donors, representatives of CG, I imagine IITA, with on top of these, farmers-based organizations representative, private sector representative, and ministers of agriculture in the implementing countries should sit in such regional steering committee. Then the implementing partners can be getting together to share experience and share best practice and see, and also report to the regional coordinating agency on the progress made, and the coordinating agency will now report to the steering committee. It's important that throughout the process we put credibility in what we'll be doing. I think this regional coordination unit should be a lean structure. If I take the case of CORAF, not more than 5 people are working in this type of structure. Very lean, but covering 13 countries of West Africa with quality results. I think that's what I can say now. Let's go for a regional coordinating unit. Let's have an analysis to look at critical roles, functions, and governance of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I like the conversation. The dialogue is always good because you end up coalescing around some main issues, and I think we're all agreeing that the clearinghouse is something that we need. I'm not talking about the name, but the function. I put forward a value proposition for TAAT, and that was very specific, because the value proposition simply says that
TAAT is putting something on the table that belongs to only TAAT. And one of such things I see is the clearinghouse. There are two operative words, technology and transformation. In between that, you're talking about coordinating and ensuring that the transformation happens. So this coordination has to be by an honest broker. We're talking of assurance of quality. We're talking of robustness, robustness on both sides. The demand is both on the bank side, but it's also on the country side. So you're talking of a broker like that. From a transactional point of view, or in a transactional note, we really need to remember that there are also a number of ongoing initiatives. And TAAT will not do it all. So we need to be specific. What is this that TAAT adds value to? What's the special thing? And I think that's what we need to determine in deciding on the functions of the clearinghouse and how we're going to put people or teams together to do it. Because it has to engage with other ongoing initiatives that will also add value. And TAAT has to be very specific and clear. That's what I think. Thank you.
I have nothing to add at this stage. I think Sanginga opened up the space by indicating clearly that IITA is not tied to the format of the clearinghouse as was initially proposed. And Jonas says that they have enough information to move the process forward. I'm glad to have been part of the process.
I think we should not only clap for them, we should clap for all of us. Shall we give a round of applause for the discussions and for all of the sessions today? It has indeed been a very full few hours. Since 9 o'clock this morning, we hit the ground running, and it has been really amazing how much we've been able to achieve. This was called an enlarged general discussion, which essentially was zeroing in on this concept of the clearinghouse, and I think it has been a very, very useful time. I'm happy that Jonas is happy, and therefore I think we can go forward. It is time for lunch. I don't know if there's any other please, 50, please, let's come back at 1:45. We have been talking since morning about urgency, about the need to do things quickly and be efficient and all of that. And so when we come back for lunch, we're going to be talking about action plan and timeliness and sharing of responsibilities. It's time to take the rhetoric into action. So go and get a nice lunch, and let's come back here by 1:45, ready to put some things down in terms of responsibilities. Please, Godwin had one or two announcements before we go.
All right, thank you so much. Very few announcements. The first one is for those that are departing tomorrow on KQ 533, either to Nairobi or connecting Nairobi to some other places, you'll be checking out from your hotels 4 p.m. to this evening. A vehicle will take you to Lagos. There was an advice that you check out from the hotels. What time? Because it's lunchtime now. Okay, I'm told that the vehicles are outside now, but how do we marry that? I think that will create some logistic problems, so maybe we can tell you that much later. But for those who have bills to clear, it's better you clear your bills either from iHouse or the hotels today. Thank you. Have a wonderful lunch.